controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a science here to make things make sense.
Oh my goodness. Good news, everybody.
News. This is actually really exciting. We're obviously a little bit, if this is coming out next week, so this will be a little bit late. Most people have heard, but there's some really great news around COVID-19 vaccines, around the efficacy of them, around the timeline of them. Gregory, what do you think about this?
Who knew that on this podcast we'd be like, yay, Pfizer, big pharma. Like, it's so funny how many like Pfizer press releases I was like reading this week, like getting excited. I was like,
And like rooting on the pharma company.
Yeah, I'm like deep down I like do not like Pfizer. Okay, so yeah, we've got two really effective vaccines. 3 if you include the Russian one, no offense, but they don't even really have final stage 3 information, but they're saying they're really good. Sputnik 5 and Epivac Corona are from Russia. We're actually going to ignore them. Sorry to our Russian listeners. So one thing I just want to say is that in reading all of this, I keep having to read about Operation Warp Speed, which is the name of the American government funding system for these vaccines. And I'm just like, what a horrible name. What a horrible name for a country that is like rife with vaccine hesitancy issues. I'm like, you should have called it like Operation Gonna Be Thorough.
Yeah,
like, it's like,
so
oh
true.
my God.
It's also such a like 6-year-old boy
Trump.
Title. Is
Such
that,
a yeah.
It's just like thinking about
Warp Speed.
Operation Warp Speed is just like some dude who thought that was so cool and was like, this is so epic, but it's actually the lamest name.
And don't you think someone in the meeting would be like, well, what about the people who are worried about this going
that feel
too
it's
fast?
rushed. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm so mad about that. But I mean, they did give a lot of money to both of these vaccines. So that's just something to know. Like, if you're wondering where all this money came from, of course, also some came from Dolly Parton. LOL. She's probably happy about that. Millie, she has so much money, but she's basking in that one. So they're both mRNA vaccines. So that's really interesting because these have never actually been inoculated into humans before, prior to these even phase 3 trials. So the fact that they're working so well is exciting for COVID-19, but it's also exciting
Just
for the future of vaccines.
in general.
Yeah, and just like scientists are so incredible and smart, and that this process and pathway makes a lot of sense. Just even learning it as someone who like loves cell biology, but someone had to think of this and figure out how to actually do it. But RNA does tons of things in your body. Do you remember like in like 4th year cell bio when they start to be like, okay, you thought RNA just did this, but it folds in on itself and it does this, and you're like, what? Like, RNA is complicated and fascinating, and I love it. But essentially, the way that this is working is that your RNA, it takes the instructions from the DNA within your cell, and then essentially it codes for proteins in the cytoplasm. Those proteins are then built within your body. It kind of is like the only reason you're alive. Like, everything about your body is created through these RNAs. And so what these vaccines do is they're actually injecting the SARS-CoV-2 RNA, like parts of it that code for the spike protein, which everyone has maybe seen if you've seen the actual visual depiction of the virus. That spike protein is what your then immune system needs to bind to learn about, to build the immune response. So you're actually giving people the RNA to build the spike protein so that your immune system then sees them. Oh my gosh,
relax.
Ernie.
It's fine.
Ernie loves RNA.
He's getting really excited about science.
They're cheaper. They're easier to make. That's part of the reason why this has all happened really fast. Like, we've talked about vaccines before. It's not like you were giving the quote unquote dead virus. You're actually just giving, part of the RNA. Mm-hmm. So it's all just
That's
kind of
really cool.
Yeah.
It's so interesting and shocking to think that that's possible. Like, even as somebody who's taken many science and genetics courses and biochemistry, just knowing that we can insert things into a body that then goes deep into cell machinery and uses genetic code to build things so that the body learns how to fight things. It's like that's really mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. And it's also the reason why we actually like live long and don't have these horrible, like we don't have polio. Like, there's like so many benefits from it. And here we are about to come out of this. I mean, like, we have to talk at the end about a realistic timeline. The only way we're going to come out of this is through this specific type of scientific technology. So like, it is fascinating. And just like, no, you cannot get the coronavirus or COVID-19 from this vaccine. Like, that's not how it works. Just because you're building the spike proteins doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're gonna like build the virus. Like, all those like fears that you might have around this are not true. But what they were testing for was whether or not it could potentially make the disease worse, or whether or not you could get more sick, things like this. We have not seen that happening. In fact, we've now got these results that are all really very exciting about efficacy, which we're going to go through right now, to make us understand that not only do you not have to worry about the fact that like any of the false things you hear about vaccines all the time are not true, we're now seeing that it's actually working, and here's why. So should we go through each one?
Yeah, I think so. You kind of have like the stats of each one, right? Like, why don't we talk about comparatively, or you could just do one at a time. Just give us a summary of Pfizer.
Okay, yeah.
Pfizer came earlier.
Yeah, and then
right?
Moderna came and just like drop kicked them out of the picture and was like, well, come on down here, babe. 94.5% accuracy.
Okay, well, spoiler. Okay, start with Pfizer.
So Pfizer had 44,000 people split into two groups for their phase.
Split into two?
Split into two. One's a placebo group, which, oh, sorry, Hans, you only got salt water.
I know. Those people are like,
isn't that
oh my
so
God.
sad?
Yeah,
they're actually saying that because they're so effective, they feel like they should give those people now the actual like vaccine.
That is also, yeah, that you would be walking around. Like,
That would suck.
because then are you expected to walk around normally without
Yes.
masks? I mean, obviously. you wouldn't be
No,
able to
what?
go-
No, you live your life normally.
Okay, just normal. Okay.
Yeah, and there's enough like disease on this planet
That you're
currently that
probably,
they've
if you,
got these
like,
results.
lots of people. Okay.
And the doctor also, or nurse or whoever's inoculating you, also doesn't know.
Yeah, I love that.
That's kind of interesting.
Double
Like, of course,
line,
because of
bro.
course, if you were giving like maybe the nurse giving you the wrong one would have a face like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm literally just
totally.
giving you salt water. Like, and they would maybe like figure it out. So one group gets the actual RNA Pfizer vaccine. The other group gets the placebo. This was ages.
That is how Italians say it, by the way.
The placebo. Ah, they have a placebo with a tomato sauce. 12 years up to 85 years old. That's how many people were in it. I was like, 12-year-old. That's really interesting.
Well, I mean, of course, they've got to put it in a trial.
What a brave young Greta we got on our hands there. So they had 94 lab confirmed cases. So this is like after all this time
Of COVID-19.
Of COVID-19.
So these people just went and lived about their lives, and then they were just like, let's find out who gets COVID.
And 80 of the cases received the placebo, whereas 9 of the cases were from the vaccine group.
Okay. So
And
that's
so-
why they come to the conclusion
Of
that like it's
90.
90% efficacy,
Yeah, and-
because the 90% of people who got it were.
Yeah, and no serious
Placebo.
safety concerns. And then the other thing is like they're releasing this because they're so excited. It could go lower or higher because this trial will stop when they get 164 confirmed COVID-19 cases.
Okay, so that is actually a benchmark they're trying to
Yes.
reach, because that's just a standard maybe, or that's
Just like I think that's like
what they have set as.
Yeah, because Moderna had a different number. It's not.
Okay.
It's obviously something that.
So they probably just
like,
set their
decided.
goals, or like, we will know. They probably like statistically calculate like what is a good number to know
Yeah.
based on the population and how many people are actually getting COVID.
Yeah, like I
Anyway.
assume Pfizer knows what they're doing. But this one has to be kept at minus 94 degrees Fahrenheit to be effective. That's one thing.
What is that? First of
Yeah.
all, get over yourself, America. We need metric. No
Yeah.
one understands what minus 94 is. Has anyone ever been in that temperature?
Yeah, no, it's very cold. It's like dry ice cold, and that's a
Because
big
I actually
issue.
think that is that colder than Celsius. There's I actually should know this. Well, I shouldn't because I only know metric. But there is a point at which Fahrenheit goes lower than Celsius. Like, so obviously, say like 30 degrees Celsius is like, like 90 or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. But when you get, I think they cross at like minus 30. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
something like minus 30
Yeah.
Celsius is the same as minus 30
But so
Fahrenheit.
that-
And then
wow.
it shoots lower. And I'm like, it's such a weird
American
system.
exceptionalism is so funny. It's like just like join us on this earth, please. Yeah, so that is a big issue. I really do think like the temperature. It's like, okay, a lot of this world is hot. It's very hot, and it's going to be hard to get that to people. Also, you need 2 shots. So, for example, Pfizer said it could have 50 million doses made by the end of 2020, but that would actually only be for 25 million people because you need 2 shots.
Right. Okay.
So for every vaccine that they
not
can make.
that many people. Oh, but that was
But that's the end of
this year.
2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Half for Americans, half for other people, like places like Canada. working out to about $19.50 American dollars cents per dose based on this warp speed, and they're not going to be charging Americans apparently. Now you're going to feel what it's like to have free healthcare, America.
Oh, so because it was funded probably by American money.
Yeah, this warp speed is giving a lot of the money
So
to
they're
this
like,
one.
you can't. This is free for us.
Yeah, and a lot of German money as well. So it's like Pfizer and BioNTech, which is a German company that did that one.
Okay.
So that was all really exciting. And then the people at Moderna, these catty little sly
They're
little
like,
fools.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, but yeah, there's definitely a gay PR, like a bitchy ass gay PR guy who's like, "Girl, we got to get in there." Like slams the books down, like, "Move over, Pfizer, hun. We got
They're
some
like, we're
data.
rounding the number up. We're rounding the number up.
We got some data, hun."
Okay, so Moderna comes and they say,
They say, "Oh, we only got 30,000 participants." They bury that under the rug. Less people. It's not necessarily worse, but just good for us all to know. So their vaccine is 94.5% effective. So 95 participants of the 30,000 got COVID-19. 90 had the placebo, and then 5 had the vaccine. So again, and theirs is only needs to be stored at -4 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually important to understand. Another thing I wanted to say is that
so you said -4
degrees Fahrenheit. Yes.
Okay,
So
which seems way more reasonable.
Yes, and it's actually really stable. They found that it was like it could stay in a fridge for 24 hours and still be used.
And I think I read it could even be out normal for 12 hours or something.
Yeah,
Is that
at
wrong?
room temperature.
Yeah. So obviously, it was that.
Yeah, 12 hours at room temperature. Yes.
Okay.
30 days potentially.
So that's
in a
amazing because
fridge.
that is
Yeah.
a huge barrier for any vaccine is its transport, how long it lasts. If, stores or places or doctors and hospitals are buying these, how are they going to keep this many? And what do they do? Where do they store them? Like they have to have facilities and a whole plan in order to. Oh my God, I just burped.
We are drinking again.
We're like last time.
Cats out of the bag.
Well, if anyone's watching, I just have this like pink drink. By the way, it's a cider. Or yeah, this is what you got me.
Imagine, is it?
By the way,
Salt water.
It's
Placebo.
it looks like a pink lemonade. Anyway, back to Moderna.
So essentially, mRNA vaccines are quite unstable. So they're put in tiny lipid nanoparticles is how you get them. Okay. But that's part of the reason why there's a lot of talk about temperature, because they're not the most like stable virus compared to like live attenuated viruses or the other ones that we've had. So there is a really big push to understand and make sure that these things can stay effective in what temperature for how long, because that's going to be a big part of it. And they think they can have 500 million to 1 billion doses by the end of 2021.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
100 billion?
1 billion.
Oh, okay.
100 billion
I was
vaccines.
like, why do they need that many?
And again, you need 2. So 1 billion vaccines means 500 million people inoculated.
But that's still amazing. And so these are just 2 of the companies. There's still a lot of other. And who knows? I bet there's a lot of pressure right now on a lot of other vaccine companies to start releasing data if they're not already planning to, because they all want to have the headlines. They don't want to feel like they're behind. But it's good to know and good to feel like, okay, having lots of different options is good, especially in terms of distribution.
Oh yeah, that is for sure. We are gonna need. I am picturing like 10 vaccines out there. People are maybe getting diverse ones. Like I think it's really gonna be about what ends up being the most effective
and most useful to which region. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I just think it's really important to know these are news releases. These are not peer-reviewed studies. They are being really open. Like we just went through exactly what happened, and we're assuming that's what happened.
And we hope that everything is truthful and not over-sensationalized.
Which I don't think it is, but I'm just like, it is a really important caveat to say that these are news releases. Like they're all really excited. Dr. Anthony Fauci was expecting like 60 to 70% efficacy. So the fact that it's 90 and 94.5 is like a huge deal.
Really.
So they're obviously like, we want, to let people know and start to like figure out how we get these out to people, but they still need to be peer reviewed. And I also think it's just like, how long does it last is still like a question. Like the immunity.
Oh, true.
Like there's still so much we don't know.
But at least that would buy time. So for example, we obviously get flu shots every year because the flu is mutating and changing, and every season they're trying to guesstimate what it will be. So there's a world where maybe the flu vaccine contains the COVID vaccine, the yearly vaccine that you would get just to be up to date with.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. I've heard that's like maybe what might be happening.
Yeah,
I'll
and
get them every year.
So, I mean, for now, we just need something to like get us to the point where we can have life back to normal, or at least as close as it can be back to normal. And then hopefully there's a system that gets put in place where healthcare professionals figure out the best system if this vaccine is needed on a regular basis.
I do think, though, a realistic timeline for like you and I getting it in our arm as civilians, as not frontline workers, as not teachers, I think might still be like fall 2021 is my guess.
I think that too, but I'm more optimistic.
I know.
I honestly do think that's the timeline, but there's just that part of me that hopes like somehow all these vaccine companies start coming out with really great results and
vaccines at Christmas. Ho ho ho.
But at least, that it's just hopeful. Hopefully this news can help a lot of people. I know it's going to be a hard winter, I think, especially in the northern hemisphere. Obviously that's where we're having winter. I think going into this, having that bit of hope can put people's minds to say like, look, this is going to be tough, but at least we can kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Stay the F home, wear a mask.
Yeah.
Like we're in the home stretch for sure. That's what I really took away from this. I was like, okay, I can do this with an end in sight for sure.
Yeah. And like it almost gives it more purpose to be like, let's make sure we continue our mask use, hand sanitizer, washing hands, because once we reach the vaccine, that's when we can see it now. This is not just like forever.
Oh my God, picture this. Okay. I'm pitching it for this year, but maybe it'll come out next year. It's going to be the best freaking Christmas movie ever. It's literally called Kris Kringle's Christmas Miracle. That probably exists. We all don't believe in Santa because we're adults, right? Or spoiler alert to anyone in the car.
Don't say that out
Well,
loud.
I don't know. Like kids believe in Santa because they're
just because you don't believe doesn't mean it's not real.
Doesn't mean it's not real.
Believe.
Exactly. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
By the way, for children listening, Greg just doesn't believe, and that's why he gets coal.
That's why I can't hear the bell in Polar Express. I'm like a Scrooge.
I still hear it.
So listen to this. It's this Christmas. I was about to say September 25th. That's my birthday, actually. Yes, like I said. We all wake up in the morning. We had doubts about Santa, but laid out in front of us are vaccines.
Oh my! We have to give to ourselves.
We have to give to ourselves. Santa's like, ho, ho, ho there. Take a little prick from Kris Kringle's brick and put it into your little arm. And there's like a little like muffin thing beside it. And it's
a what? A little muffin?
I don't know. He's baked muffins or Mrs. Claus has.
What?
And it's a Christmas miracle. And Santa exists. And Santa actually figured out the vaccine, gives it to everyone.
Wait, what are you talking about?
It started as a movie and then it turned into a daydream.
Real life.
Yeah.
So when would that movie come out?
Like
you think that would be this Christmas or next? Because by next, then wouldn't we be like, this didn't happen? This
I actually
really
don't think it's
story.
a movie. I'm just actually like, imagine Santa was real and gave us all vaccines. Okay. Okay, should we take a break?
You are insane. Sure, let's take a little break. And we're back.
And we're back.
So basically, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a study that is not directly related to the vaccine, okay? But it just came out and it was a review and a look at how conservatives and liberals view COVID-19 differently, which I think will come into relevance not only with and without the vaccine, but yeah, just broadly in this pandemic. I thought I just came across and I wanted to share it. And I don't want to try and make this overly political. Like obviously like we're very left-leaning people, but this isn't me trying to
the rich
bash or anything. I just mean it's interesting to learn about how different people think about different perspectives. And I'm sure there would be like, this take is kind of specific to conservatives because political ideology has become one of the biggest predictors, especially in America, for how somebody perceives coronavirus as a threat. So, and in saying that, liberal-minded people tend to like believe coronavirus is a larger threat than conservative people. So I'm not trying to say anything weird about that. And I just want to talk about this from like the study's perspective. So basically what they found while reviewing all these people and understanding their views on coronavirus and the pandemic is that conservatives are generally more sensitive to threats that are relatively high in agency, which I'd never thought about before.
Relatively high in agency.
So what that means is, something that's high in agency is something that has a specific amount of control. Like, so if you think about a terrorist, you're like, they are specifically trying to kill us. There is a human being or a person or like whatever, somebody that is coming after us, has a motive in mind and wants to hurt us. So things that have less agency, and in this case, a virus may be that because it's a little bit more random, right? It's not like, it is, of course, trying to hurt you in a sense, but it maybe is just kind of floating around and then it lands on you and then it like goes into your system.
And they almost, and like I think conservative people would try to almost make it have agency by being like, it's the China virus.
Well,
like trying to place
maybe that's
on
not agency in the same way. That's like finding blame. So a couple other traits that this study found was that conservatives tend to see free will as the primary driver of outcomes in life, whereas liberals are more accepting of the idea of randomness.
Whoa, that's so like
compared to liberals, conservatives tend to attribute outcomes to purposeful actions. And so I think the inverse of that is that liberals are a little more able to see that there's not always like a through line to something, or believe that there's not always a through line. And they're more likely to blame any negative outcomes in their lives on these more agentic policymakers or fellow Americans rather than the virus itself in the case of the pandemic.
Wait, so what does that mean?
So, for example, when it comes to the pandemic, you have things like policymakers. Why am I saying that so weird? Policymakers. You have the American public. We're always hearing about, and like say any country. Let's just not even say America. You're talking about different people's views and people taking certain actions. Some people going to clubs. Some people being indoors for months on end. You have media organizations. You have your neighbors. And so comparatively, all those different things have agency and they have motivations. Compared to a virus that has seemingly is unobservable by the naked eye and has much less agency. So, you could think, these politicians have motivations to do certain things. These different countries have different motivations. That's agency. The virus is not, to me, something that's trying to accomplish something.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm like, well, it's trying to survive, which is kind of interesting.
Exactly. Like there definitely is a level. And obviously it's not saying that conservatives deny the science of it. It's just on the surface, obviously, how we see things.
But it shows you how science can help you understand that, like, in
there is like a bit
theory,
of agency.
there is a bit of agency to the virus.
So what has been suggested based off of these sort of surveys and studies is that instead of using statistics, policymakers and health officials should start talking about the virus in terms that make it sound more threatening. Not like scary, but make it sound like it has a motivation. So this is a direct quote from one of the authors of this paper. They said, if they talk about the virus as having a motive, as being a palpable enemy that is seeking to attack humans, maybe you get a greater buy-in from the start on the part of conservatives. We also show in our research that liberals are not driven away by doing this, so it seems like a good move. Because obviously the concern would be like, maybe when that kind of conversation of like, this evil virus is trying to take over us, it's infiltrating our lives, we have to stand up against it, you'd be afraid, does that turn off some people? But the research found that it doesn't, and that would
oh my god, tweet that, like Instagram reel that. So that's such an interesting takeaway from like a very like philosophical sort of frilly like concept. I was like, this is also interesting to me and to the listeners, but it really like is exciting to think that there is a takeaway, which sounds really weird and feels wrong.
It feels wrong to me, and it feels very American in some ways, where a lot of things get positioned like that, where I don't feel like, why are we talking about a thing like it has autonomy? But I can actually see like that is the way Americans talk about other problems in the world, and I don't just mean Americans, but it is like as Americans we have to stand up against this tyranny or against these terrorists, and
well, it's an American ideology that bleeds throughout the world. Like, it's not an American only ideology.
Oh, of course not, yeah.
But I think it's very rampant there in America as a powerful country. It's like the leader of that thought
Well, because
process.
I think for them, it also brings together this idea of patriotism, which it can in any country. I think that is how countries kind of rally for good or for bad. Is the fear of something, right?
Yeah.
So even thinking of like world leaders who have not been particularly good or who have been authoritarian, they're often creating a threat that has autonomy. They're not just saying,
Yeah.
oh, it's this nuanced, complicated factor that, you know, the way that money is
Oh
structured
my
in the
gosh,
world.
which
It's like,
is
no, it's that
so-
person's fault because they want to kill you.
That's so interesting because I just think that like science in and of itself is about thinking critically and sort of understanding that everything has nuance. And like even when you think about misinformation online, it's like you have to, if you hear something especially scientific that seems too good to be true or too like specific or on the nose, that's when, at least for me, I go, okay, let's double check that, let's find the research. Like I'm always looking for nuance, but it's like with what's happening in America and with what's happening with this virus and this like patriotism and stuff, it's like instead of trying to like force people to look at the world the way you do, or I do, which is like nuance and science and things like that, why not just make it more black and white for now? If it's not hurting necessarily anyone,
yeah.
I'm sure there's a way that we could probably contextualize it, and I'm sure academics could study the damage of this thought process. But initially, just like my surface view, I'm like, that's really interesting and might be a really smart tactic. If I was like in the White House with Joe Biden, I'd be like, this might sound weird, but maybe if you do this,
Right.
you
It might bring on people who would otherwise think.
Because Donald Trump and conservatives they haven't done that. They haven't.
At least not very strongly. I think that probably has been some of the messaging at some points. I feel like I have
But
heard
they're
a
just
bit of
like a
that
mess right now. Like Donald Trump's a mess. Like he doesn't have, like, I could see another more intelligent leader with a conservative ideology maybe utilizing that to keep people safe.
Because I actually think there's another layer that there is no, how do I say this? The shift of balance between us and a virus is what it is, and there's not really a stake to gain politically. Obviously there is, but
what do you mean?
So what I'm trying to say, and I'll see if I can articulate it well, is like when you ostracize an actual group of people in society, which happens, and even under the Trump administration, it's like immigrants are the problem. They're trying to break into our country and steal your jobs and make our country bad. That's the kind of language that gets used because that actually rallies a subgroup of Americans. I think there's like a disadvantage in a politician's mind to rally the entire country around an entire issue. So going against a virus and trying to be like, we're all against this virus, like maybe it could work, but I can feel like there's not the same like political gain. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
Saying something
no,
out
that's
loud.
interesting. Like, there's less polarization, which is like helpful, I think, for someone like Donald
It's interesting
Trump.
that they didn't go in that route, and I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Well, I'm more just think it's kind of mind blowing. It's like a thing to think about and a thing for politicians and all of us to think
be aware about.
How do we talk about it? I remember hearing scientists at the beginning really being like, we have to respect this virus because the actual understanding of where it came from and the fact that it kind of is just trying to live is going to help us understand evolution and nature so that it doesn't happen again. Like we need to respect nature, which at the time made sense to me, but I remember like sort of like tweeting it, like talking about it with a few friends, and like it didn't catch on. It's like, I don't think that narrative, I thought maybe in the early stages,
that is a very
that's going to be a narrative.
pervasive view, I think.
But it's like, but even as someone who thinks about and reads about science all the time, I haven't found that talking point coming back into my ideology. Like I kind of like I let it sit with me for a week, and then I was kind of like, well, actually, I don't know. It didn't
like
stick.
resonate like that,
So
yeah.
I'm like, okay, if I never found that to be that important of a thought process, this is sort of the flip side of it, which is like, why don't we treat it as an enemy to try and rally these people who are really likely being a big issue for why America is suffering so deeply on a world scale right now from this virus. I'm having a hard time, and actually hashtag side note podcast, please let us know what you think about this. What are the downsides of this currently? Because I even think your political thing was interesting, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, why not rally everyone behind something? Doesn't that seem net positive for like polling or whatever?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
It's so interesting.
I guess if your belief on
virus as
different
an
political
enemy.
issues is that you wouldn't want to shut down, that's what I think this is also specifically even for scientists and people who are trying to communicate the urgency of this is serious. Like even like Dr. Fauci, using that kind of language to say like, we have to rally because this virus is trying to take over our cities. I don't know. But you're right. There's
so
something weird about it that
interesting.
feels almost
like
like
it seems scare
insidious.
tactic-y and like, but then it's like, but we can only look back in history from the future with a perspective. Like, we're living through it. So we know things are bad right now because people are ignoring it. They're saying it's fake. Maybe it is more conservative minded people don't want their lives to be regulated by the government. So in order to fix what's going on, you have to regulate people's lives from the government. So maybe if the government says it's the evil virus, if that helps. Oh my God, I really find this interesting. Yeah, me too.
I don't know why that just made me think of like the regulation. I saw some like funny subtweet today that was some person on Twitter being like, well, there's like HIV and all these different viruses. Like, we don't wear masks for them. Like, why should we like be controlled by our government? And someone like retweeted it and was like, those are called condoms. Like, they're literally dick masks.
I was literally like, what about the frickin' things we put on our schlong and a dong before we have sex?
All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to like say?
No, I
think
really think that's fascinating, and I really just want to think about that more. And like, I want like an academic to like release a book or something on.
Because obviously, it feels extreme to force that narrative because it feels stereotypical. And you're right. It's like we're not sure where that leads. But to me, at least a virus is just this thing that's not human. It's also not like an animal that we're against. It's just like I'm fine if we're all against the virus.
Oh yeah, I mean, and some people say it's not even living. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. It's like by definition.
So we should all rally behind it and be like, we're here to defeat it. We're gonna come together and stop this thing that's trying to kill us.
I can't stop thinking about how interesting this is, because so much of the issue I find from people, even like you know, the more conservative ideological people come out of the woodwork in your life with this virus. You get to see where people land. And really what they're doing is, to make it way more simple than it is, they're going, oh, it's not that big a deal. And then I find myself trying to like kind of use scare tactics to be like, well, I don't know. Like yesterday someone told me about their 25-year-old friend who got it, was fine, but he was a runner and now he has long COVID and he can't run because he has respiratory issues. It's like, that's the story I tell people to try and keep people
to be like, it's serious. Just because you don't die doesn't mean you aren't affected for life.
Which is true. And I'm resorting to scare tactics to try and help some of my more conservative leaning friends to get behind something. So I'm already doing the thing. It's like a version of being like, the virus is scary. Okay, into this. Wow, that's fascinating.
I'm curious what other people think. Yeah. What kind of, how we obviously, there's going to be a lot of learnings from this in terms of how to communicate. And like you said, it's not always finding a message that works for everyone. It's meeting people where they need to be met and the kinds of ways that they perceive the world. And that is a challenge, I think, not only as a science communicator, but as scientists, as policymakers, as communicators of these kinds of things. How do you create messaging that works for a broad swath of people, or different messaging that works for
Subscribe to ASAP Science on YouTube, where our next video is going to be like, the evil, scary virus. Every time I draw the virus for ASAP Science, I put the quintessential evil eyebrows. Yeah. So, I've been doing it from the get-go.
It's evil. It wants to destroy us all. It's trying to take out humanity.
Yeah, and like, what's the other way of thinking? Like, oh, it's just trying to survive. It's like, no, give me a virus. I want to literally get rid of this virus. Like, I actually do not care. I'm sorry. Like, I'm all for not eating animals, but I would eat this virus up. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Again, #SideNotePodcast if you want to tell us what you think about things. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Anything else you want to add, Greg?
No, but I love you.
Thanks for listening. I hate baby language. Stop it. Everyone hates it.
I kind of say it all the time, and I need to go get help.
Bye. Bye.